Russia has a long and bloody history of warfare. Combat sports saw a surge in popularity following the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Sambo was formed during this time period as a result of the government's desire for the military to be adept in hand-to-hand fighting. For many Russian fighters, MMA is a natural progression from Sambo, and the sport has produced many champions. Stay tuned as we run down the best 8 Russian MMA athletes of all time. First, Alexander Volkov. Alexander Drago Volkov is a heavyweight fighter in the UFC. He's also held the titles of Bellator and M1 Global Heavyweight. He is a true monster, standing at 6'7" and one of the UFC's tallest and longest combatants. Volkov has been with the UFC since 2016 and has fought his way up the ranks to face some of the promotion's top fighters. He was 10 seconds away from a title fight against Daniel Cormier when he was knocked out in the 5th round by a wild right hand from Derek Lewis. At only 31 years old, he still has a few years to add to his history, but he has a record of 31-8, including essential victories over Steven Struve, Fabricio Werdum, and Roy Nelson. Moving on at number 2, Oleg Taktarov. Oleg the Russian Bear Taktarov is an old-school Russian fighter who used to be a KGB hand-to-hand teacher. This was after he began Sambo and Judo at 12 and later participated in both as part of his mandatory military service. He was a 4-time European Jiu-Jitsu champion and the UFC 6 winner. Oleg went to train with Kem Shamrock during his stint in the UFC. When they practiced together, they usually battled behind closed doors so no one could see them. Oleg had major victories over Tank Abbott and Mark Kerr. Unfortunately, Oleg's MMA career was ultimately derailed by his genuine passion for acting. Oleg opted to compete in the UFC to meet Hollywood stars in one of the most daring paths toward Hollywood. This is a far different road than getting on the guest list for A-list parties. He's appeared in Bad Boys 2, Miami Vice, and 15 Minutes. Following that, at number 3, Sergey Karatanov. Another seasoned Russian mixed martial artist, Sergey is widely regarded as one of the sport's top competitors. During his career, he's competed in practically all of the major MMA promotions. He's a veteran of Pride FC, Dream, Bellator, Glory, M1 Global, and Strikeforce fighting promotions. The UFC is the only major organization for which he's not competed in the past. He was a former kickboxer, but he began training in combat sports at the tender age of 10. When he was 16 years old, he started learning another martial art. Can you guess which? Probably yeah, combat Sambo. After gaining this experience, he was offered an invitation to join the Russian top team, where he planned to train with Fedor Emelianenko. In reality, he was the one that instructed Fedor in all of the ground strikes and submissions. He has a record of 29-7 in mixed martial arts competitions and boasts victories against notable fighters such as Matt Mitrione, Roy Nelson, Andrei Arlovsky, and Alistair Overeem. Next up at number 4, Alexei Oleinik. Alexei the boa constrictor Oleinik has fought in more fights than many people have in their lives. His overall number of bouts exceeds the average person's amount of years. As of this writing, his record is 59-14 and he's fought 73 times. His fighter moniker, the Sub, makes it clear that he's a submission specialist. Before deciding to pursue a career in MMA, he fought in grappling contests, one of which was hosted by Eddie Alvarez and in which Alexei won the tournament overall. The next year, in 2005, he won the World Combat Sambo Championship. Oleinik first got into mixed martial arts to prove to myself and others that I could be strong. He decided to pursue it as a career after concluding he was pretty damn good at it. He's been actively competing in mixed martial arts MMA since 1996, making him a true veteran of the sport. On the other hand, he didn't sign with the UFC until 2014. He has since won via submission over MMA legends like Travis Brown and Mark Hunt. He's the only UFC fighter in history to stop a fight with an Ezekiel choke, and he did it twice. Furthermore, he's the first fighter to compete in 4 distinct decades: the 1990s, 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s, and the first to win a fight in each of those decades. He eventually won the KSW 8 tournament as the heavyweight champion. Moving on at number 5, Alexander Emelianenko. Given that Alexander the Grim Reaper Emelianenko is Fedor Emelianenko's younger brother, it's safe to conclude that the Emelianenko family is one of the most dangerous in existence. Alexander Emelianenko was reared in a low-income family and spent much of his free time indulging in street brawls. His older brother Fedor was brought into his Sambo training lessons since he needed help supervising him. He first grew interested in the sport during these classes. Before entering the world of mixed martial arts MMA, he was a 3-time world champion in the fighting sport of Sambo, which is famous among Russian fighters. He then transitioned to professional mixed martial arts MMA at 22 2002 and began participating in Pride FC. He presently has a professional mixed martial arts record of 28-8. He has wins against Bob Sapp, Gabriel Gonzaga, and James Thompson. Like his older brother, Alexander's known for staring death in the eye in moments leading up to a conflict. However, when the bell rings, he changes into an elite fighter, bringing decades of different battle experiences. He was never a part of a Western MMA company, and thus never competed in MMA due to unfounded medical difficulties that prevented him from competing in the United States. He was thought to be afflicted with hepatitis B or C, although this is not certain. Throughout his career, he secured the title of Pro FC Heavyweight Champion. Following that at number 6, Alexander Shlemenko. Alexander Storm Shlemenko is another dominant Russian MMA fighter who now competes in the middleweight division of the Bellator company. He turned professional in MMA at the age of 20, and by the conclusion of his first year as a pro, he had a record of 15-2. Some of the fights occurred on the same night, which is extremely usual for lower-level MMA tournaments. Although he was a pro MMA fighter in his early 20s, he saw MMA as a hobby that provided him with some extra cash, while he focused on his education. He had little ground game, leading Jacare Souza to knock him out with a submission at Jungle Night 5. He began to pay much more attention to his ground game after that. He then made his Bellator debut in 2010 and won the Season 2 middleweight tournament that same year. Later in 2012, Shlemenko defeated Michael Falco in the second round to become the Bellator middleweight champion. His professional MMA record is 59-13. Next up at number 7, Fedor Emelianenko. Fedor, often known as the Last Emperor Emelianenko, is widely considered to be the most well-known mixed martial arts MMA fighter to ever come out of Russia. Fedor was a heavyweight competitor who competed primarily in the Pride organization. You can't talk about the best mixed martial arts fighters of all time without mentioning Fedor at some point in the discourse. We're referring not only to warriors from Russia, but also to fighters in general. He's been victorious over many of the best heavyweights, including Mark Hunt, Mirko Krokop, Mac Coleman, Antonio Nogueira, and Andrei Arlovsky. He held the Pride Heavyweight Championship from 2003 to 2007 when he was an unbeatable force. Unfortunately, Fedor never made the transfer to the UFC. Nevertheless, as we've seen previously, this did not prevent him from competing against the best that the heavyweight division has to offer. Fedor presently has a record of 39-6 in his professional career and is competing for the remainder of his career in Bellator. Finally, at number 8, Khabib Nurmagomedov. The Eagle, Khabib Nurmagomedov, tops our list of the finest Russian MMA fighters of all time. Khabib and his late father, Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, were instrumental in putting Dagestan, a Russian republic, on the map. Khabib is a terrifying fighter in the UFC's lightweight class. He has a 28-0 record and has defeated world-class fighters including Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, Edson Barboza, and Rafael dos Anjos. His combat style is almost all grappling. He mauls his opponents to the ground, unleashing a barrage of ground and pound on his exhausted foes. What distinguishes Khabib is that every fighter he fights is aware of his game plan, yet no one has yet discovered a means to prevent him from implementing it. Although Khabib's walk-around weight can be around 200 pounds, he competes at 155 pounds, his persistence in grappling makes it so difficult to fight. At least that's what Dustin Poirier said after their battle. Khabib may have learned to grapple so effectively as a child by playing combat with miniature bears. There's a video of him doing this as a child, which you can view here. Khabib wears a papaka to his fights to show off his Dagestan ancestry. He's a simple man who has become a symbol in the Muslim world and may be the last man standing. Well, that marks the end of our video for today. We hope you enjoyed it. On your way out, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.